by one of our guests here on BBC Happy Hour, Galen Peterson, World's Most Dangerous Highway, about Rude Irish in Iraq. Doug Satterfield wrote that. We have a Meet the BBC Board of Directors and lots of other stuff in the magazine. So this will be going to the printer by the end of this week, and people should be receiving it in their mailboxes by mid-June, certainly.
It's a very good magazine. Again, if you don't get it because we don't have your address, so please let us, please give that to us so that we can get that off to you. It is free. But what is not free, though, is if you come on to our website and you want to become a member, it's $36 a year. You get a magazine. You get some other really wonderful things like us saying thank you. And you also get these incredible BBC pin. So if you are not a member yet, please join as a member. We'd love to have you a part of it. It's such a nice pin. It really is. I should put it up here on my collar. Moving on, we also had a new Scuttlebutt episode. We're into season 6 now, which I host. It's a pre-recorded podcast. This is the most recent episode. Ryan All, who is a retired Army, he's currently in the reserves. His friend, who he went to lieutenant school with, David Winnie, joined us. He is an EOD tech captain in the Army, and had a lot of really interesting educational things to say about EOD, a bit about his story, why he joined, his first time defusing a bomb. But we also talk a bit about The Hurt Locker, which if you've not seen the movie, it's a 2008 Jeremy Renner movie about an EOD guy who's sort of like a wild gun that Ryan despises pretty much. But David had a very good rebuttal of Ryan's review of that movie. And we talk about the new Army physical fitness test that you can see David there. He's kind of a fit guy, just a little bit. Yeah. You could say that. But really, really interesting dude. I had a really great time chatting with him. And I don't know why anybody in their right mind would even think of being EOD. Why would you want to walk up on a live bomb and defuse it?
Right.
No thanks.
And he did not have a good answer as to why he joined originally. He did not. I love this episode. You asked him what made you join it to begin with? And he said, well, my buddy told me to join it. And I thought, well, I'm kind of like him, so I'll probably like it too. Right. And that was it. That was like the extent of his reasoning. It turns out he does like it, but he kind of went in cold.
He did. It's. I was really blown away by his story. Pun intended. I didn't mean to say that, but pun intended. But are there any other announcements, Todd, before we get to Sandra's story?
No, we could. We might. I might filter in an announcement or two towards the end, but no, not right now. Let's get Sandra talking.
Sandra, it's from what I hear from your daughters, it's not hard to get you talking, which I've had such wonderful conversations with you over the past couple months. I was so happy that Mary Klepper, who's here on the call with us, Mary's waving her hand. Mary's from Baltimore. Mary sent us the article that you appeared in and said, hey, this might be a great guest. And so we did our homework. I reached out to your church. We found you. I got to have a really wonderful conversation with you over the phone, and we set this up, which thank you, Mary, for sending us that article.
Thank you, Mary. Absolutely. You're welcome. I loved your story, and I couldn't wait to hear more about it. And I knew Sean and Todd were the people to go.
Oh, boy. We're buddies already. But listen, I tell you how close we are. Guess what? EOD, I was the chief of personnel and administration of the 2705th EOD Squadron.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. Hey, at Wright-Patt Patterson Air Force Base, we had 13 detachments. I'm listening to you smiling. You're right. Who in the devil would want to do that? I didn't.
So before we get to your personal story, I was gonna say, what was it like working with those guys? I'm sure they were just a completely different breed.
Whoa, they were a different breed, and they were usually away because I was just the chief of personnel. I was not EOD per se, which is what they used to say. Hey, but hey, I tell you what. 13 detachments right before I retired. So I'm wondering, is that what did it?
Yeah, it might have been. Sandy, let's go way back, well before your military service, in just diving a bit into your history, because you have such a very interesting beginning. Back as far as grade school is before you ever even considered military, you were kicked out of school in grade school.
I was kicked out of school, but I got to make a correction. Mm-hmm. I never considered the military.
Right.
I never considered it. Somebody who clearly was smarter than I, knew me better than I knew myself, said, this girl will be our token qualified colored first Black female to get this direct commission from President Eisenhower during the Civil Rights Movement. Never once did I consider the military. Never once did I set foot in the military, in the ROTC building. Never once did I have a moment of training. Nobody asked me to take a physical or do any physical exercises or take a medical. Mm-hmm. They just needed a token colored female or Eisenhower did, to make right what he had promised people of color during the Civil Rights Movement, that he would appoint, and he used these terms because that's what we were called then, a qualified colored female as an officer in the new burgeoning Air Force that was just about 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. That they would, I will appoint a qualified female. And that one day, my parents looked up. Somebody was ringing the doorbell of our front door, and it was the person who was in charge, the colonel in charge of the ROTC program at Morgan State University, our historically Black university in Baltimore, and the Chief Warrant Officer 5, Mr. Good, who had taken on this mission because someone, an aide-de-camp, who was in the office when President Eisenhower said, okay, I will do this. I will appoint somebody to this newest branch of service to open up try to see how it goes with the waters of integration. Mm-hmm. And that's, Morgan State took this up as a challenge. And the next thing you know, they're on my front porch asking my mother and father if I can be that token female.
Do you know why Morgan State did that specifically? Was it a nationwide, were all universities and colleges?
I don't know, but I do know that they were very active, and we were in the civil rights movement. Mm. They were, we had as administrators of historically Black universities, certainly then, certainly now, change agents. And their mission was to elevate the Black race. That was the mission of the HBCUs. And so a friend of Colonel Stewart, who was the commander of the Morgan State Battalion, Bear Battalion, sent him a message saying, hey, Eisenhower says he'll appoint a Black female. And Morgan State took up the mantle. And how in the world they chose me, one will never know.
How many other females were at your college?
Oh, a lot of females were at my college, and older. I was only 16 years old when I started Morgan, mm-hmm. When I started college, and this all happened in my senior year. I turned 20 in March, and all I can think of is that the other women, the older women, was smarter than me. I don't know. And they said, not me, not me. So they had to find somebody. Mm-hmm. But also think there might have been something else too. Because when I started, as you said, that I went to St. Francis Academy. Yep. St. Francis Academy, when I was put out of my junior high school, and I was put out because that was the era of segregation. We had Black dedicated colored schools, and in each section of Baltimore, Northwest, East, South, there was a dedicated colored school. We were called colored then. And if you didn't, that's the school you went to. There were no more schools. White kids had schools all up and down their neighborhood. But you had a dedicated colored school. So my elementary school was not St. Francis, but Coppin Demonstration School that was in West Baltimore. That was a colored school. I got out of Coppin very early because what happened in those days is that you started school, it was kindergarten, there was 1A. I got a dog named Hugo. You hear him?
Oh, Hugo was very excited that you're joining us.
He's talking here. So we had 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, all up to 6A, 6B. And if the teacher thought that you were interested in studying or a good student, they would pass you, promote you. You skipped the B's. I skipped the B's. And so when I went into junior high school, I was only, I don't think I was more, I think I was 11. I was very young. I had skipped all of those B's, which quite honestly made me unfit because I did not fit. I was too young, and you go into school, and you got all these older girls who have breasts and everything else, and they're making fun of you. And so I just, that was a part of what happened to me. And so what also happened to me is that at the time that I started Booker T. Washington Junior High, which was the dedicated colored school, I came down with the worst case of epilepsy, grand mal epilepsy. And it lasted me, as a matter of fact, until I was in the 11th grade.
So what happens whenever you have an episode? What actually would happen?
You have an episode of epilepsy. You may first go into a trance, or you may immediately fall out. You get, it can kill you. You can have strokes. My condition was so severe that every one of my brothers and sisters had a job watching over me. When my parents went to work, they would put a stick in my mouth. They would fall on my body so I wouldn't hurt myself or whatever. They would stay with me until I woke up. I mean, they were with me the whole time. We had boxes of medicine under the bed from the Johns Hopkins Free Clinic. And I remember my mother and father traveling on the streetcars one night with my head in Daddy's lap and feet on Mother, with a box of all of this medicine. And that's how I survived. Luckily, I survived. And so I went to Booker T. Washington. I was ready for junior high school. And being a colored school, or maybe it happened in the white schools too, there were no resources to take care of me. There were no nurses, nothing like that. So they had to put me out. They could not take care of me or have me in that building. And so that's what happened. I was home for an extended period of time, but just home. Taking medicine. Certainly we didn't have any teachers to come in to work with you at that time.
I was going to say, so you were falling pretty far behind at that point. You weren't being homeschooled, right?
No, homeschooled. No, my mother and father were working. But I was really a very studious student. I loved to study. I mean, I used to hide when I was supposed to work under the desk, everything, and read books. And I just loved to study. I loved to help the teachers, So Anyway, lo and behold, St. Francis Academy, the Oblate Sisters of Providence built this school, an independent school for poor and colored girls who boarded. They were from all over the country, as were the Oblate Sisters of Providence, who were all over the world, from all over the world. But they came to Baltimore, and in the presence of the penitentiary, they built St. Francis Academy, which still exists today. St. Francis Academy was a godsend. They allowed me to enter. They took care of me. I went there in the morning. They fed me breakfast. They fed me lunch. They had sisters who had every skill. There was a chair that was put up in the back of the room for me when it looked like I was going into a trance, and a nun would give me my medicine. This is, I realize now what a blessing it was to have been Black, and what a blessing it was to have been, in the situation, to have grand mal epilepsy. Everything was a blessing, as I know today. So they took me into St. Francis Academy and took care of me. When I was in the 12th grade, we didn't have any money for me to go to college, but I knew that I always wanted to go to college, and my family always was, education was the thing that Blacks did. That's how you get ahead. That's how you become a part of the country.
Can I ask a question? As before the epilepsy sort of went away, when you were that young and you're just trying to go to school and you're trying to learn, were you ever scared of the epilepsy?
I don't know that I was scared of the epilepsy. Grand mal epilepsy hits you so fast that you don't, before you know it, you're out of it. You just, have no awareness of anything. And then after a while, if you're lucky, you wake up. I can't remember